Good evening and welcome back to yet another week of basically Bryant football talk. I am Ricky Nooner, and as always, with me is Mr. Josh Briggs. Good evening, Mr. Josh.
How are you, Ricky?
Well, I'm away from Monticello. I'm at home right now, so it's comfortable, it's warm, and I'm just just ready for another great weekend of football. Of course, we had one heck of a weekend last weekend, not just in high school but in college football. Um, of course, I'll be doing another podcast later about the college football weekend and everything like that. Of course, in this weekend, we have state semifinals are going on right now for 2A, 3A, and 4A. Tonight is the 5A state championship. The last time I checked, Pulaski Academy was rolling pretty much in that game. It was 30-7 at the half. I'm pretty sure they're going to pull away
Yeah.
pull away in that game. And what a heck of a season for Whitehall, a team who has just come. I mean, they literally come from the bottom up, and
Oh, absolutely.
one heck of a coaching crew down there. Like I said, they're going to be back. But like I said, PA is just they're still really good, and until of course we talked about this before we came on, until they figure out a system for these private schools, whether it's changing up the rules on the recruiting, or even playing them even higher classifications. We're going to continue to get this from Pulaski Academy. So it's definitely not going away. And um, like I said, though, but they're still one heck of a program. And I mean, until the rules are changed, like I said, they're going to stay that way. And so also see, so let's see, we've got Greenwood and El Dorado at noon tomorrow. And then, of course, the big one, and the reason we're doing this podcast to begin with is Bryant going for a fourth state championship against Casey Dick and the Fayetteville Bulldogs. So last week, let's go ahead and get into last week real quick before we get into basically the keys of the game tomorrow night. So last week, Fayetteville had a pretty good lead on Conway. Conway tried to come back and make it a good game.
I mean, it was 20 to nothing Fayetteville, the whole game. And Conway came back and led. They were ahead with less than a minute to go, 21-20. All you need to stop, and they couldn't do it, which is uncharacteristic of Conway.
Very, very, very uncharacteristic, and I agree with that. Of course, I remember we were both watching the game at that point. They put a field goal kicker out, and the announcer said that he hadn't attempted a field goal all year.
No.
And he drills it like it wasn't even close. It was just he just drilled it.
Yeah,
And it's like
and it wasn't a extra point length. It wasn't 30 yards. This is a 40-yard field goal coming off the leg of a kid that has not been on the field to kick a field goal period from any distance other than a PAT. And like you said, drilled it. And I was sitting there watching it. My wife was sitting there beside me. She wasn't watching it, but I was like, I just took my headphones off and I said, what just happened? I mean, Conway's season life literally just got killed. And on a, you don't call it a fluke play because it wasn't a fluke at all. Casey Dick believed in his kicker for whatever reason and threw him out there. Now, I don't know if you remember, but the announcer said this kid was hitting from 40 in pregame. He was out there practicing. They play on a turf field. Of course, they got some of the best facilities in the state, playing literally right down the hill from the Hogs. So, but he goes out there, and I'm thinking the same thing. And I was like, why are you putting – is it going to be a trick play? What's it going to be right here? And, I mean, you said it perfectly. He drilled it. It would have been good for more than 40, and it was – unbelievable from Fayetteville. Congratulations to them. Hats off to them.
yes.
It's been a 7A Central final the last 3 years with Bryant and North Little Rock only in there. It will be good to see a team from Northwest Arkansas back in Little Rock playing a team from Central Arkansas. And the reason I say that is neither team really knows each other. They haven't played each other since 2019. Bryant won both of those. One in the regular season, week 3. One in the playoffs to end up eventually going to the finals. But in history, these two schools have not played each other very much. Only 10 times. It's 5-5. Bryant has the slight momentum edge with the last 2 victories, but and that's according to Fearless Friday. I'm not quite sure how far that goes back, but it does say the series is tied 5-5. So, all right, 10 games, 5-5. There's a lot on the line tomorrow night other than just a 4th state title. And, we hit on it last week. whenever we talked about Bryant and coming into that semifinal game, Bryant's not only playing for a fourth state title in a row, which has never been done by a 7A school. Central was not a 7A school whenever they ran off and won, all those back in the day. So that's history in and of itself. I would say 99% of coaches don't make it to that many state finals if they ever make it to a state final. And Buck James is going to 4 in a row. He's been there before. He's a proven winner, but Bryant's also going for 42 straight wins in the state of Arkansas, dating back to week 9 of 2018 when they lost to North Little Rock before they eventually ended up beating them in the finals. But one of the biggest things from a fan and a writer standpoint, Buck James cares absolutely nothing about this. But if he wins tomorrow, that's 200 career victories. And he's been a head coach, and that's just as a head coach. He's only been a head coach for a little over, I say only, but a little over 2 decades. That's an average of 10 wins a season. Regular season's only 10 games long. And to win 200 games, that fast, Callie won 200 at Bryant. Buck's doing it at Bryant and everywhere else that he's been. But there is a lot on the line tomorrow for the Bryant Hornets other than hoisting that trophy. Of course, that's the big thing. But you never hear of a 42-game win streak anymore. You never hear of, 200 games is not talked about much anymore because a lot of your old coaches are out of the game that are even close to that. It's kind of like a pitcher in baseball winning 300. We may never see that again in our lifetime because no one's close.
No.
So it's a lot is on the line tomorrow for these Bryant Hornets. I can't say it enough. I've written about them all week, from writing a editorial piece on them on how magical this is. That's what I don't think a lot of people understand. People are like, this is old. They've won 3 in a row. This is old. We want somebody else in there. No, you don't. Not when it comes to football. The Sibling Golden State Warriors or LeBron James going to 8 straight finals. It's not the same thing. These are different players every single year, and it's an absolute magical feat that what the Bryant Hornets have done.
I mean, and of course, we talked about Pulaski Academy a while ago. This is their, let's see, I know they did 4 in a row in the 5A. I'm going to say this is their 7th state championship in 8 years. And like I said, it's a little bit different because, they're in a 5A classification. They're nowhere, the competition they play is nowhere near the competition that we see in 6A and 7A. It's just really not. It's just really not. So like you said though, this isn't like a college like Ohio State, for example, who traditionally is very, very good. This is more, when you're talking about high school players, it's like you said, they're new players. Typically every year, very rare do you get teams that return all 22 starters. It has happened, but not with this Bryant group, not in the 4 years that they're continuing on with this streak. One of the things, though, that fascinates me about this is that, and I know we touched upon this last week, is that they're still building and they're still going to be very good regardless of what happens tomorrow night. Regardless of what happens week 1 next year, they're still going to be very, very good. And there's no telling how much more they can do, just after this. But I will say this about this Fayetteville team. This Fayetteville team last year, if I looked at it correctly, I might have looked at a different year. Last year, this was a Fayetteville team that was 6-6, and they were nowhere near a state championship contender. And all of a sudden this year, Casey Dick has literally gotten this group, which, I thought Casey Dick was a great hire after, what was his name? Dawson. When Dawson left, because Dawson took over after and then I think Casey Dick took over after Dawson left and did some other business or whatever it is. And so, like I said, though, what a terrific job that Casey Dick has done, just getting these guys back. And here's the thing. Of course, we're gonna break this down here a little bit later. They do it with all the offense. They don't do much defense.
No.
And that tells you right there. Mate, I don't want to say that they're behind, because if you look at the stats, they've got the best defense, or they got the best defense, or they have the best scoring defense in the conference, except for maybe Bentonville. But it's just unbelievable on what they've done. So I'll go ahead and get us started here with, because last week we were in the semifinals. We talked a little bit about Conway and Fayetteville. Of course, all my eyes were on this North Little Rock Bryant game, and it was one of these games. I'm sitting in my chair. My wife went to Bryant, and we're watching this football game. And Briggs, I thought we were defeated. I thought Bryant was defeated. I saw at the end of the first quarter, it seemed like we had nothing going our way. The offensive line was not pushing, or the defensive line was getting killed at the very get-go. 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. And so I'm like, okay, maybe we could see something, transpire in the second quarter. Nothing. And then I think with I want to say it was a 6:43 mark, is when Bryant got a much-needed touchdown, and it happened to be a 62-yard run. Let me see if I can mention this kid's name. Chris Ganaway. Is that how you pronounce his name?
How you pronounce it.
This kid ran for 62 yards, and I said, okay, maybe we have something going. And then their very next possession, they make North Little Rock go 3 and out. Very next possession, Blake Everett catches that freaking huge touchdown run.
The tip, bobble, everything to set that up.
It's like, goodness gracious, that kid. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so now we're starting to see something. North Little Rock in the second quarter, the one thing they were able to do in the second quarter, they were still able to move the ball. They just could not score. And here's a couple of things that I'll go ahead and point out about this North Little Rock coach, because the North Little Rock coach, he tried everything in desperation. Stood up at the goal line. 4th down, you're at the half-yard line. Your quarterback's been running all over the place. Could have snuck it in there. No, he decided to go for this pass that wasn't even close to accurate.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that play up, because it reminds me of Pete Carroll and the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Of course, it was on 2nd down, and they got one of the greatest running backs of all time in Marshawn Lynch, and they don't hand it to him like you're going to catch Tom Brady and Bill Belichick off guard. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. But it reminded me of that, because if you remember, the way North Little Rock scored their first touchdown was the same, or it may have been their second touchdown, was the same way, because the quarterback, they bring two linemen in, or 2 tight ends, whatever you want to call them, and like in the victory formation, and then it's just a straight push. And they did it the 3 plays prior to that from the half-yard line. And then they try to catch Bryant off guard, which Bryant's DC and OC sit up in the box, so they see everything. And they don't even, the announcers called him a tight end. That was not a tight end that tried to do a rollout, like a pick and roll in basketball, and catching over the shoulder. That was a lineman. He played lineman all night. Like, so on 4th down, I can understand trying it on 3rd down. But on 4th down, why are you sending a lineman that barely knows what the football looks like out to catch a pass in the end zone? It wasn't even close. I mean, the ball's coming over the shoulder, and the lineman's he didn't know what to do, and he shouldn't have known what to do. And it's not on him; that's on the coaching call.
Right. Well, here's something else, Briggs. And so North Little Rock only scored 1 touchdown the entire game.
Okay, then it was the first one.
Right. It was the first one. The same kid, same exact play like you were talking about. That time, Bryant was ready. And so from the 6 minute, like I said, that 6:43 mark, it was all Bryant. Like I said, they were able to move. North Little Rock was still able to move the ball pretty well against Bryant. They were trying some different things. Because they didn't want to. When you're trying to beat a team as good as Bryant, you can't give them the same look twice. You got to try something different, and that's what North Little Rock was trying to do. The only thing was North Little Rock was trying to be a little too fancy with it, in my opinion. They didn't really. They played hard-nosed power football in the first quarter. And then, I'll give the North Little Rock coach a little bit of credit here. That field goal kicker, that kid he's got right now, you're sending him to kick a 50-yarder in high school, and I think the kid's only a junior if I looked at the roster correctly. And so, you know what? He had a little bit of confidence in this kicker. But here's the thing, though, Briggs, and this is the biggest thing of the entire ball game. Bryant's defense adjusted very, very well in the second half. They shut North Little Rock completely down in the second half. They shut North Little Rock down to the point that when they were going to make North Little Rock pass the football, which is what Bryant wants you to do. Bryant's not they're not very good at stopping the run. You can see some of some of their games that they've had. Of course, like we've talked about this, high schoolers, a lot of these high school teams, they run the football quite a bit. So it's nothing for a high school team to give up 200 yards in a game as far as rushing on the ground goes or anything like that. But Bryant, they want you to pass the football against them. And obviously they did a very good job containing them in the second half. If there was anything I was going to critique offensively about Bryant was this. They had a little bit more success running the football in this game than what they did in game one. Their passing was I think they did 200 yards passing in the first game. This game they were only 172, and so I'm trying to get this kid's name right. Burnett. What's Burnett's first name? The quarterback. Carson Burnett. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I get his name right. 10 of 22 passing for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the most important thing about the entire game is they did not turn the ball over. But I will critique this. I will critique this one thing. In my opinion, just like North Little Rock tried to go too fancy, I think Bryant at times tried to do too much. I saw more chunk passes, 20 yards, 30 yards down the field, sometimes even further than that. I saw more deep throws than I did on some of these little short throws, which I thought Bryant would do a little bit more of these short throws. And even against and give North Little Rock credit. That is one tough juggernaut defense for a high school football team. And of course, like I said, though, Bryant, with the way they were able to adjust, the way they were able to match up, as far as their defense goes against North Little Rock, they couldn't pass the football. And they made it very uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, the last defensive play, the great defensive play they made was a pick six. And so, like I said, a great defensive effort. And, of course, we're going to get more to the state championship here in a minute, but the offense has got to play way better than what they did against Fayetteville.
Oh, absolutely. And to me, I was thinking to myself after that game, of course, I'm the beat reporter for the Hornets for the paper here. And to me, it was the worst game Carson Burnett has played all year. But to mirror that and why it was the worst game he played all year, Coach Buck James described that North Little Rock defense as a very good small D2 college. He said, we played a small D2 college defense out there. He said, it's the best defense I've ever coached against in my 30 plus years of coaching. And I told him, I said, Coach, I totally agree. I said, but you got to look at something too. I said, your team really wasn't on the field all that much. 52 plays is a lot for a college for a high school football team. North Little Rock snapped the ball 70 times and got 249 yards. So
that's really good.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And you look at Bryant's defense, we can talk about Bryant's defense all year long. Week one, we didn't know what they were going to do. Now we're 14, 15 weeks in. We know exactly what they can do. And none of these guys, other than one, Brandon Jones, I believe, is the only starter last year. And he's a outside linebacker and phenomenal and leads them in sacks and all this, that, and the other. But that defense was the key to the game. You know, they allowed North Little Rock to have the ball for 70 snaps, only gave up 249 yards. Through the air, like you said, North Little Rock could not pass. In my opinion, that quarterback is not a very good passing quarterback. He looks to run first, which if I had his speed, I'd probably want to run too. But he is not very tall. His arm is not very good, and he showed that. He was 11 for 26, 74 yards, 2 interceptions. That goes to Bryant's defense right there and shows exactly how good that Bryant defense is with a lot of sophomores out there. But going back to Bryant's offense, like you said, they have to play better tomorrow if they're going to beat Fayetteville. I think they're going to win. You know, I picked them in week one to win it all again and had no idea what the defense was going to do, but I knew how good this offense could be. Carson Burnett did have the worst game of his season. He was 9 for 21, under 200 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns, but a big key to why Bryant's offense did not look very good is Carson Burnett is usually the number 2 running back on the team. He was held to minus 14 yards last week with 5 sacks on 11 keeps. Luckily, Ganaway did break free for 62-yard touchdown, finished with 114 yards, and that was it for the running game. I mean, they finished with 128 yards of rushing roughly, but that was the momentum boost right there that they needed to watch a kid break the seam up the middle, hit the outside, and he was gone. I mean, he was gone from the 30 on the other side. No one was ever going to catch him. Yeah. And a big key to Bryant's offense tomorrow is got to be you got to stay with the run. But luckily for Bryant, Fayetteville hadn't stopped the run all year. That's how Conway
No.
came. That's how Conway came back. They cannot stop the run. It says right here in the Hootens magazine, if anybody buys it and reads it, that the lack of linemen is what Fayetteville has. But it also has Fayetteville preseason ranked number 3. Obviously, they're the number 2 team in the state right now in 7A. So
Right.
they can do something. They've made adjustments, but their defense is not good. They remind me a lot of the Dallas Cowboys from the few years past. Is Dallas never had a defense. They were always trying to outscore the other team, but they had to score 40 a night. So Fayetteville is averaging over 40 points a game. Good for them. Very, very talented offense with 3 great wide receivers and Isaiah Satania, however you say his name. This kid his stats are stupid. I mean, they're just absolutely ridiculous with 90 plus catches, 1,700 yards, and 16 touchdowns. And that's in high school. And we're talking about 13 games or 12 games. They're 10-2. So you just don't hear of those stats. So who do you think Bryant's going to key in on tomorrow?
Yep.
It's going to be Satania. But like Buck James said, I talked to him yesterday and the day before, and all he kept going back to is they have a 3-headed monster at wide receiver. You can't just cover Satania because they got 2 more guys they pitch it out to. And in high school, it's so hard to double team one guy because then, you got your 2 best defenders on this guy. That's leaving 2 or 3 other guys open if they're in a 4 wide receiver set, 3 wide receiver set, whatever it is. But then you got Omar running the ball for Fayetteville, and he runs it very effectively. And Bryant has a lot to look out for tomorrow. They have to be in the right places at the right times, and they have to tackle and do not let the ball get over your head. And I think you're going to see a lot of contained defense, a lot of man-to-man too. But this defense just continues to amaze me every single week. It doesn't matter who they're put up against. And the way that they came back, I mean, defense is the reason they won the Conway game in week 10 to get the number 1 seed. Conway lost 3 games this year, 2 to Fayetteville, 1 to Bryant. But Fayetteville also lost to North Little Rock this year, 14-0. They just couldn't get off the ground. I mean, 14-0, you'd have lost every bet you ever made in your life if you bet that Fayetteville wasn't going to score against North Little Rock's defense. So I think Bryant's got the upper hand. They've got history behind them. They've got the better team. Obviously, you're not number 1 for 4 years in a row and not have a good team. So Buck James is going to have his kids ready, but they're healthy. And that's one thing that I asked Buck after, going into last week. I was like, Coach, how are you this healthy? I mean, how is no one hurt? There's no one limping around or out of uniform on the sideline. Everyone is healthy. By this time of year, you're usually looking at 1 or 2 players that are out with an ACL or, broke something. Not with this. And I asked Coach, I said, how do you do it? He said, it all starts in the weight room. He said, we condition every single day and every single week, but we do it the right way. And they're bought into the conditioning. And so whenever they're ready for a game, their bodies have already been put through it. They know exactly what's coming. And they don't make stupid hits on people that get themselves hurt. They don't tackle uncharacteristic or they're very physical, but they do it the right way. There's a right and a wrong way to tackle someone. So many high schoolers, whenever I first started covering this, it was all about the hit. If you can't hear it in the stands or up in the press box, then it wasn't a good hit. I got to go hit him harder. It's not the case. There is a right way and a wrong way to tackle, and Buck James's crew, his coaching staff, really teaches how to tackle. And a lot of people might not have ever heard that before, but it's not all about hitting someone. You can hit them all day long. If they don't go down, then you didn't make a tackle. And a lot of times you're hurting yourself. And Bryant does a very good job with that. But tomorrow they're going to have to catch the guy to tackle him. So that's what I mean by being in the right place at the right time on the biggest stage in the state. Bryant's already played there once this year in the Salt Bowl. Not a very big game, even though it is a rivalry in week 1. It's totally different tomorrow under the lights at War Memorial, and they're going to have to play better than they did last week because Fayetteville obviously has a kicker that was born last week.
Yeah.
So Bryant's going to have to play. I mean, just it's simple as that. They're going to have to play better tomorrow.
So Fayetteville reminds me a lot of the Mississippi State of the SEC. They pass the ball quite a bit. I can't remember what the percent was. I think it was like 70% of the time or something like that. They're passing the ball. They don't run the ball very they don't run the ball very much. You've seen it. I've been looking around some of their stats and stuff like that. They've had a few games where they've run the ball here and there, but the most success has become passing. But but look who their coach is. It's Casey Dick.
Exactly.
Casey Dick. He played underneath Houston Nutt. Houston Nutt, of course, was more of like of a running coach or whatever. He's just more of a running style coach. And of course, a lot of people, especially back then, they used to bash Casey Dick so much. I actually liked him. I actually thought he was decent. I thought he was better than Mitch Mustaine. But I mean, decent quarterback. And like I said before, he's done one heck of a job with this Fayetteville team. In order for you to win games, you have to be able to run the ball effectively, and you have to be able to stop the run. And Fayetteville is uncharacteristic because they really don't do very well on any of those. Conway ran all over the place last week. I think Conway had over 300 yards last week. But there is one thing that Fayetteville can do very, very well, and that is force turnovers. They forced a lot of turnovers last week against Conway. And they executed on just about all of them, especially when Conway was trying to come back. Like what was that play? Didn't they have a pick six of that last play? I believe is what they had.
Yeah, and I mean, you can call that a forced turnover. It was a hook and ladder and lateral play, and we knew it was coming, and they just picked off the first lateral. I mean, they picked it off, took it to the house,
So I couldn't remember off the top of my head, and I couldn't remember off the top of my head if that was what it was or what. But they do like to force turnovers. And then they like to hit you at any unexpected moment. And here's the thing, and everybody knows this. No matter what level you are at, you have to have an offensive line. You have to have a defensive line. That's how you start your program. That's how you build your program. And like I said, Fayetteville's uncharacteristic because, like you said earlier, they really don't have that.
No, they don't.
Statistically, if I'm looking at the stats. And I'm looking at if I'm looking at, just the eye test, Bryant should smoke them tomorrow night. It shouldn't even be close because to me, Bryant is just on a whole nother level. And Fayetteville, they're going to get there. And like I said, I think they're going to, we should see their best. We may or may not. I don't know. Because, it's like I said, though, it's a 7A state championship. Usually all bets are off. But I feel like Bryant, it shouldn't even be a game. Is it just me? Or do I just? Or I don't think it should be a game. Briggs, this should be a 28-point, 35-point blowout. But at the same time, when you have a coach that just motivates these kids, and you got a coach like Casey Dick who has played at the college level, who understands the game from another point of view, he's going to find holes in that defense. He's going to find a chance for them to try to at least get some kind of way to slow them down because defensively, they're not going to be able to slow Bryant down very much. They don't have the defensive line for it. They don't have the linebackers for it. They got to find some way to slow them down. I don't see it happening. I see this being a blowout game, and that's just me. And I hate to say that because, like I said, I know it's all bets off. I don't see this being a close game at all. I know they played close against Conway. And I know they were back and forth defensively. But even Conway has some of the same issues that Fayetteville has. The only reason Conway was in the game with Bryant is because they forced 4 turnovers on Bryant very early.
Yeah, and you mentioned the turnovers on. I mean, Bryant, obviously, I don't care who you're playing. You can't turn over the ball and expect to win if you turned over a lot. In the last 2 weeks of the regular season, Bryant had 7 turnovers. So right. I mean, it's crucial there. I think they've cleaned that up. Even though Carson did not play very well last week, as far as stat wise goes, he didn't have any turnovers. There was no fumbles. Nothing like that. I mean, Bryant only had 293 yards and they've averaged 450 all year, but they find ways to get it done. But one point that I want to go a little further on that you made was the fact that Fayetteville does not run the football. So the key to a very good passing game is a very good running game. A balanced offense wins games. A very good defense wins games as well. But if you are not running the ball, and Bryant knows that 70% of the time you are going to pass the football, they're going to be sending 2 linebackers or 2 defensive ends rather, one being Brandon Jones. I hate to see how many sacks is going to be had tomorrow night unless Fayetteville can get the ball off. It may be just be throwing it away. But
I
Bryant's
say
going to be
6.
I mean, it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of knockdowns, a lot of flushing him out of the pocket, things like that. But Bryant's defense is going to play back. They're going to send 2 or 3 rushers, possibly. You're not going to see 6 men in the box. You're probably going to see 4 down linemen because they're not worried about the run. And
No.
and even if they are worried about the run, they're not going to get far. It's not like they're going to break off 4 or 5 40-yard, 20-yard runs. It's just not going to happen. So Bryant, I think this week in practice, and I haven't been to practice, but just mental picture, they've been working on having Carson step back and throw against his own defense, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to be looking for big chunks of yardage. Now, if Fayetteville starts working the middle of the field and sending their 2 or 3 a wide receiver on a slant route across the middle, is where you might be able to catch Bryant off guard, because you're going to send 2 streakers, or at least one very good streaker that's going to have a safety or a corner following him. And then you might be able to catch him across the middle, like so many teams have done with their tight ends. Hunter Henry made a living cutting across the middle with hogs, and that's the thing. But you're going to have to be able to lay hits over the middle, and they'll stop doing that. You're going to have to be able to tackle and contain if they do get the middle open, because a lot of times if a quarterback can go back and hit a receiver over the middle, it's usually for 8 to 12 yards, sometimes further if they break tackles. So that's going to be something that Bryant has to watch tomorrow night. But the running game is going to be a non-factor, in my opinion. I mean, Omar's got 500 and something yards, like 9 touchdowns. It's good for him. That's good high school stats. Chris Ganaway's, he should pass 1,000 yards rushing tomorrow. I think Bryant has a field day running the ball tomorrow. I mean, a field day. Chris Ganaway is going to go off. James Martin's going to go off whenever he comes in as a backup. Carson Burnett, if he don't like the pass, everything lies on his shoulders whenever it comes to play calling. He can audible out. He can pick what he wants to do. It's play action every single time. And if he keeps it, he could go off. I mean, we could potentially see 2 running backs with 100+ yards and a quarterback with 60 or 70 tomorrow, And one thing that's gotten Bryant to where they are is Torian Singleton. I did a feature on him in today's paper, and he's a sophomore. And
terrific athlete.
Oh, I mean, and I was reading up on him last night. I didn't know a lot of stuff about him, but he's a sophomore, okay? A sophomore wide receiver that started playing a little late in life. He started playing at 14 to 15 years old, which is pretty late. I mean, you're right there.
That's real late.
Yeah, and I mean, most kids start at 6 or 7, with contact football, and so he's already had college visits. It's UAPB, but I don't care. It's still college visit as a sophomore.
College.
And he's the American elite teams that Daryl Patton and Paul Cowley have coached down in Dallas, which are the elites. I mean, some names on that. One being the quarterback from Clemson that just went to Jacksonville, whatever his name is, I can't think of it.
Trevor Lawrence. Stephon Diggs was invited to this thing whenever he was in school.
Swift from Detroit was invited to the big names that are in the NFL now have been invited to this. We're talking about sophomore. We're not talking about no high school senior, junior. We're talking about a sophomore that is leading the best team in the state in receiving yards. He is leading as a player, as in the locker room, on and off the field. I asked him last night whenever I was talking to him, I was like, what drives you? He was like, I can always get better. I was like, what do you look for whenever you're not on the field playing? He said, I'm constantly trying to figure out what I can get better at because I'm so in love with the wide receiver position, whether it's route running, whether it's conditioning, whether it's just learning the game. He said, because I'm still very young. I got 2 more years of this before I get to go to the next level. And that right there, he's mature beyond his years at that position. So Torian may be a non-factor tomorrow because Bryant may not throw the ball that much. I don't see that happening. I think Bryant's going to be very balanced. If they run 55 plays, I think 35 of them are rush plays, especially if they're having major success. But their running game opens up the pass game. You have to think Bryant's running it on every single down. And that's where Carson Burnett will hurt you over the middle to Blake Everett, Jordan Knox, Torian Singleton, of course, way down the field. But you said, how can Fayetteville control this game? they can't control the game tomorrow with the offense that they have, because
Nope.
every incomplete pass stops the clock. Every run keeps it going unless you run out of bounds, but high school runs straight up the middle. So they're not going to be able to control the clock. They're not going to be able to keep Bryant's offense off the field. On the other side, Bryant's defense will be able to keep Fayetteville's offense off the field, and
Which is why I predict a blowout.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be. I say I'm not going to go 35. I'm going to go 21. I mean it's going to be a 3-score game, and that's just because I haven't watched Fayetteville much. I know what their scheme is. I know how they play. I know what they looked like last week. But Bryant is going to have time of possession. That's going to be a blowout for sure. I mean, Bryant's going to control the ball 2+ quarters of time. And I think you're going to see a number, unless Bryant's able to pop off some huge plays on series, I think you're going to see some 8, 9, 10, 11 play drives that take 4, 5, 6 minutes off the clock. If Fayetteville's defense can somehow stop something that Bryant's doing. That may not be the case, but I don't think Bryant's got to worry about. I mean, I don't even know that you suit up a punter tomorrow. Their punter is one of their. They've switched them out a few times this year, but their punter is always on the field playing defense. But it's you're not going to see many punts from Bryant, and that's one thing I didn't understand North Little Rock did last week. They kicked 5 total field goals, made 2 of them, missed 3 of them. Just flip the field on Bryant. Don't kick the field goal. Pin them. Try to pin them deep. It's a fair catch every time, and you could get a
like
fumble.
Like I said earlier, when you're trying to give somebody like a Bryant team, when you're trying to give them a different look, sometimes you try to get a little too fancy and a little too what I like to call, of course, me and my good friend Brad on the other show, we had this term for the Arkansas Razorback for that Browse, our offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. We had this term. It's called being too cute. You like to be too cute.
Yeah.
And when you're too cute, you just look plain dumb when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. They send him out there to kick a 50-yard field goal. I don't care how much time's left. If you're going to do that, just throw it deep.
Well, I mean, I think that was to end the half, though, wasn't it? Wasn't that 50-yarder to end the half?
Let's see here. I've got it here.
Cause see, I thought it was. That's why I didn't have a problem with it.
Well, man,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. There probably was a little bit of time left, but
I mean, anyway, you go kick it. I don't care. A 50-yarder. You're kicking half the field. This kid had never attempted this. So even in practice, you just don't do it. A run, if it's to end the half, punt the football.
Yeah.
There's such thing as a squib punt. Punt it low, and do something to get the time to run out, or just run the football. Bryant's not going to call a timeout to get it with 5 seconds left.
See, and that was one thing North Little Rock did very well in the first half. Last week, they controlled most of the clock until, like I said, until about that 6.5 mark in the second quarter. And then there goes Bryant. I mean, it was.
Oh, yeah. Bryant's serious.
Fayetteville's not going to be able to do that. That's just the thing. Unless they're just going to go up tempo and try to, like you said, try to catch Bryant off guard with a few slant routes, a few short routes here and there. But even then, I mean, last week, we saw North Little Rock try to go with some of these small slant routes, and Bryant was able to adjust it with just a couple of plays. I'd say, I mean, they were just able to adjust. It was just a simple adjustment, and they shut it down too. So I mean, it just, like I said, I don't know, because I haven't seen Fayetteville play that much either. Like you said, what they got off a scheme. But in my opinion, this should be a blowout.
Oh, I agree. It
should be a blowout.
You can watch as much film as you want to. You can watch all of Bryant's season, and that's not what you're going to see tomorrow night. Just like Bryant can watch all of Fayetteville. The only thing is, Bryant knows what Fayetteville is going to do. They absolutely know that it's the first look is Isaiah Satania. If the first look's pass, and they're not worried about the run. So what? You want to run it? Go ahead, get you 5 yards, because we know you're throwing it the next 2 downs and then you're punting.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with Isaiah Satania, he don't have 1,700 yards for nothing, and he plays in a better conference than Bryant does. He plays against better competition, in my opinion, than Bryant does, because Bryant's got Cabot and Conway. That's it. Cabot, Conway, North Little Rock. That's it. The other teams in that Fort Smith Northside was decent, but Fayetteville's playing Bentonville. Fayetteville's playing Harbor, who was supposed to be up this year. And let's see who else they have.
I'm gonna slightly disagree with you, my friend. And
you think the Central's better than the West?
Here's why. You said it yourself. The last 3 years, we've had 2 Central teams in the state championship game. The West has not been able to touch the Central up until this season. And yes, you have to have a little bit of luck every now and then to be able to advance. And Fayetteville, yes, Fayetteville was all right. Yes, Fayetteville won their division. They won that side. But yeah, I mean, now historically, the West has been the one that's dominated until the last 4 years. The last 4 years has been the Central. But yeah, I mean, I just don't. To me, the way I see it, no, I mean, it's like you said yourself. I mean, you look at North Little Rock. North Little Rock beat them. North Little Rock, but Conway should have beat them.
Right, and both the Conway's losses came to Fayetteville.
Right. I mean, so I mean, I wouldn't say it's better competition. Who did North Little Rock beat before they went to play Bryant? They played Bentonville, who's the second best team in the West. So no, I disagree. Now, if you want to go bottom up, then yes, the West bottom up is probably better than the bottom up that we do have here in the Central. Especially like you said, I'll be honest with you. I expected Harbor to win the West. It just is how good, because I mean, you look at last year's team, they returned quite a bit of their starters this year. I expected Harbor to be much better this year, and they weren't. They were terrible. I don't know what's going on at Harbor, but yeah, it's just horrible. But yeah, but no, like I said, I slightly disagree with you on that one. Because like I said, top half, yeah, Central, but I mean, bottom up maybe the West, but no, not definitely not the top half. Because like you said, the Central's represented the state championship for the last 3 up until this year.
Well, they represented. I think North Little Rock went there 4 straight years, because I think they were there the year before.
Yep.
They played Bryant in 2018 when Bryant finally beat them. I'm pretty sure they were in the state championship that year. I want to say maybe. Let's see. I got the Hootens here that shows everything.
See, I think 17 and 16. I think Bentonville won. Oh gosh, what year was that? I want to say it was 15 or 16, because their coach ended up their longtime coach ended up retiring after that year.
It was 14 when Bentonville won it.
14.
And then Fayetteville won it in 15 and 16, and that's when, after that year, is whenever you started seeing the Central come into it. And I want to say North Little Rock won it in 17, and then Bryant won it in 18, 19, 20.
Right. Okay.
And so, but North Little Rock had a Bryant-esque team that year that they won it. North Little Rock was picked 4th this year in the Central. Cabot and Conway both were ahead of them. So, they won it in 17, conference champs in 16, 17, 18, and of course it's been Bryant the whole way ever since. But and I know we're trying to wrap this thing up, and tomorrow, I mean, I'm going to agree with you. 21-point game is a blowout. 35-point is a blowout. It could be at the end of it 48-7. We don't know.
We don't know.
It's all about.
It could be a close ball game. It could be 7-0. But like I said, statistically, I don't see that. I see this being a blowout.
I mean,
as long as Bryant doesn't turn the ball over like they did against Conway. Of course, if they had some turnovers against Northside, I messed up. They did have that one fumble against North Little Rock last week. But I mean, as long as they don't turn the ball over multiple times, it should be a blowout. It should be a massacre.
Yeah, and I mean, last year's state final game against North Little Rock, I did not think was going to be as close, because last year's Bryant team is the best Bryant team to ever come through, and it was a 10-point ball game. I think 27-17 or something like that.
It was something like that.
It was a 10-point game, and North Little Rock had chances, many chances to win that ball game, and Bryant just couldn't get anything. They had Schrader, their all-time leading receiver, who I think caught 2 passes for like 8 yards. And that was a big thing in last year's game. But Bryant finds ways to win if they are behind. They're rarely behind, but they fell behind in week 9, big, came back and won. Fell behind last week, and I honestly, I did not know if they were going to overcome it. It was a cold Friday night. They had not been there that many times in that situation. And then by halftime, they're up 14-10 and never look back. So Bryant can beat you in every aspect of the game, from the coaches to the fans that they bring, because they roll very heavy, to everything up and down the line. Bryant is the number 1 team in the state of Arkansas. There's not a team that can beat them. And, we
No.
talked about PA earlier and how great they are at everything they do. Bryant waxes them every single year in the preseason game. And Bryant picks that game for a reason, because they get a different look.
Exactly.
And Bryant's just football smart. I love whenever coaches use he's just football smart, or he has a good football IQ, because that is so crucial to being successful in this game. And it is such a team sport. We watch basketball and they have 1 or 2 really good players. You got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and you got Anthony Davis and LeBron James, or Michael and Pippen. You've got 2 players there. On football, there's so much more, because if your line's not blocking, your receiver's not catching, or you're not able to pass, everything has to come together in a split second when that ball is snapped to make things successful for a team, because you got 11 guys on the other side trying to get to you. And Bryant is, I don't know. I mean, they graduated their whole defense last year. They're going to graduate their whole offense this year, aside from a couple of guys. Carson's gone. The whole line's gone. Ganaway may be a junior, but it's just, I know how they do it, and I don't know how they do it. It's like you watch a guy do a magic trick. You understand how he did it, but on the other hand, you still don't know how he did it. And so,
exactly.
and that's what Buck James does. He keeps you guessing. But the thing with Buck James, he's kind of like Bill Belichick and some other great coaches through college and the pros. There's some coaches out there that you could hear, if you were connected to their headset and he told you, "Hey, we're running it right here," you still couldn't stop him, because that's what when Bo Jackson and Earl Campbell and all of them were playing, and Barry Sanders, you knew he was getting the ball. The only thing you had to do was stop him, and you couldn't do it. Buck James could tell you what he's fixing to do, and you could not stop his team. And
it reminds me, of course. Oh, so go ahead, keep going.
No, I know you're good. I'm just saying you can't stop this Bryant team. I don't care what you do. I don't care how down you get them. You're not doing it. Conway had them down 20-3. How'd that turn out for Conway? You know what I mean? And it's just, Bryant's going to find a way to win with 48 minutes of football to play in a high school game is too much time if you're going to try to beat Bryant, because they'll beat you with 24 seconds left. They'll beat you with 4 quarters to play. It does not matter. Bryant is going to beat you as long as Buck James is there. It's phenomenal to watch.
Anyway, I went to college with a kid who played against Malik Monk when he was in high school. And he used to tell me that Malik Monk used to stand there across him. He said, "Listen, man, I don't mean to disrespect you, but this is the route that I'm running, and I'm probably going to catch it. I'm just giving you a forewarning, man." And he did it. And he
Ben Madison was the same way at box up.
Ben Madison couldn't. Oh, man, I wish Ben would have chose football instead of baseball. But I understand why he's playing baseball. But hopefully we'll see him in the bigs. All right, Briggs. Now, of course, it's going to be raining. Well, there's a chance for rain. Hopefully it won't be raining during the game tomorrow. So, Briggs, give me a final score. What do you got?
Man, I'm going 38-14. I mean, I think it's a quote unquote blowout, but I'm going 38-14. I will give Fayetteville some credit that they will be able to score early. It's going to be early. I don't think they score the second half unless it's mop up time. The clock could be running by the third quarter. We don't know. But if the clock's not running by the third quarter, something happened. I don't know what, but something happened. But I think it's 38-14. Bryant's hoisting a 4th title, 42 straight, and coach gets his 200th win. I think write it down.
That's respectable. I was going to go 42-21. I think, as much I don't want to say trickery, but as much as Fayetteville throws the ball around across the field, like I said, we saw a little bit against Conway last week. I think they're going to score a little bit, but like I said, I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to threaten Bryant. I think they're going to score. I think they're just going to score. They're just going to score here and there. They're not going to do anything, in my opinion, that's going to threaten them. I don't think they're going to go up 21-0. I don't think they're going to do any of that. Like I said, I think they'll go neck and neck at half. and then Bryant will just, like I said, they'll make adjustments at halftime, and the game's over. And so, yeah, I've got 42-21. Exactly. Like I said, I just respect that offense so much.
Oh yeah,
And their receivers have got some great speed, and their quarterback is very accurate. So that is something else that that we could definitely do. But anyway, it's been fun.
Fayetteville better, in closing, Fayetteville better hope they're within 2 scores at the half, because if they're not, it's over.
It's over. Yeah, I agree.
And 2 scores is a lot to overcome with only 24 minutes left to play in a football game. And if Bryant wins the toss, they're getting it after halftime. They're going to defer every single time because they have that much confidence in that defense. But man, it's been a blast.
Yes, it has been.
Go Big Blue. Congratulations to Fayetteville on a wonderful season. They say you play the game for a reason because you don't know who's going to win before. I'd bet Bryant 100 out of 100 times in this game. They're just too good. They're just too good.
I agree. I agree. When you and here's something else that I don't think either one of us have really put out there. How many players on the Fayetteville side have any state championship experience whatsoever?
Oh, none. I mean, none.
There you go.
And you're right. I mean, none.
Well, Briggs, man, it's been a blast, man. Like I said, we'll, hopefully next week we can do one more to celebrate a state championship. And like you said, go Big Blue, man. We're rooting for the Bryant Hornets. This, like I said, history in the making. Thank you all to the potential listeners that are going to be out there, and we'll catch you next time.
Absolutely. See you, man.
See you, bub.